Where's the Ka-BooM? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering Ka-BooM.
I think a lot of people are asking themselves that question now. Where's the Ka-BooM? Well, people are going to start asking some very hard questions, aren't they? I thought for sure by now the economy of Venezuela would have imploded to the point that they would have physically ousted Mr. Maduro, and his military would have risen up against him, and the U.S. would have had no choice but for the world global oil supply security to step in and take over the governance of the country. Didn't happen, did it? Nobody's talking about this, and we have our current Secretary of State now pleading with the Organization of American States to suspend Venezuela, but now they're seeing the writing on the wall. They are beginning to understand what really happened. And China and Russia and India and Pakistan and Bolivia and Ecuador and Cuba are all standing with Venezuela. Now, whether you agree with the governance of those countries or not, or how they think or how they believe, you should, if you are for freedom, be for allowing independent sovereign nations to determine their own course. Now, this is an article from Time magazine from, let's see if we can zoom in here so you know I'm not kidding, August 11th of 2017. And what's the title of the article? 5 reasons why Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro won't last much longer. I guess much longer is kind of a relative term, isn't it? You see, if you go down here, he presides over an economy in the doldrums. Okay, well, it got much worse from this point on, yet they're still going on. What's number 2? He is no Chavez. Well, okay, I'll grant you that. But it isn't about one man down there. It's about the people. See, you go down there and they talk about Chavismo, the idea, not the man. Yeah, there's pictures of him everywhere. But it's the idea of being the determiner of your own destiny. If you would talk to these people, if you would go down there and understand what these people believe, you would see a lot of things down there that you would call almost conservative, based on our beliefs up here. Wanting to chart their own course, not wanting to be a slave to anyone or bow the knee to any big globalist directors. That's what these people believe down here. Let's see what number 3 is. Pardon my computer. Bumbling attempts at authoritarianism. Really? Well, that's interesting. I thought the military was all ready to bolt and rise up against him, but yeah, what is it now? June 7th? And we are, 18 days, 3 weeks out? And we haven't heard of anything like this. So I think we can shoot the authoritarianism argument out the door. Let's see what number 4 is. Oh, of course, he and his government are all alone. Well, apparently not. Apparently, that's not the case. Since our own government sent representatives down there to deal with President Maduro over Josh Holt, saying that he was set up and that he was wrongly accused of working with anti-government forces and hoarding weapons. Well, interesting that we had 3 or 4 different government officials in this country actually calling for a coup. And the country's elite is losing faith in him. This is what his whole point was. He was trying to wrest control of his country from the super uber wealthy people that were sellouts to big globalist corporations. So here Time magazine is making the argument that unless the rich people in your country are for you, you don't stand a chance. He won for now. I'm sure the globalists will be back, because they don't usually like it when a leader decides to arrest and detain corrupt big oil officials. See, there's a kind of a disconnect, and it's an easy thing to not understand when we talk about the U.S. being this huge producer of oil. That's very true. Exporter of oil? Even with Venezuela's problems and losing all of their ability to keep their wells intact, they still export more oil than we do. And we buy a lot of it to this day. This is what they don't like to tell people. We've got refineries here in Louisiana and Texas that require it because of the way they're set up. It's very thick, heavy, sludgy oil. And without it, there would be problems. There's a difference between an exporter of oil and a producer of oil. See, Venezuela and OPEC countries, their governments actually control their oil supplies. The export, import, all that. United States, Russia, not so much. Not members of OPEC. So that's why they have to strong-arm OPEC. Through other means, pardon me. And this is what the U.S. needed to do. The U.S. needed to kick Venezuela out of the export market so that it could push its oil into that market. Because if you would just add a brand new supply of oil into the world oil markets, it would have tanked the price of oil around the world, which the U.S. could not have tolerated. We have to have oil be much higher to make a profit than places like Venezuela or Africa or the Middle East. So what's the best way to drive up the price of oil? Very simply, you take somebody who's, producing oil and you destroy their ability to. And in case anybody doesn't think that I'm accurate in my statement about people who called for a coup, there were 5. The president alluded to using military force. I think they're counting that here. This is from the 14th of May of this year. And they used the president, and Marco Rubio, of course, and Rex Tillerson. All alluded to the fact that either the Venezuelan military or our military were going to by now have gotten involved. Yet there's no Ka-BooM. And I thought this picture was indicative of what's really going on. You see, we have a partner down there. And if you want to see a clinic in graft, in corruption, in illegality, in violence, human trafficking, drug trafficking, you name the crime, it goes on in Colombia. Venezuela is positively a utopia in that sense compared to Colombia. They're still waiting on this issue with the dam. It hasn't resolved itself. It's just a giant pile of dirt that just has one more earthquake to shift the wrong way, and there will be a disaster like you would not believe. And what they're having to do now is they're just having to have these people abandon their homes. It's a sad thing. But you don't hear the U.S. talk about the fact that places like Brazil have to full-time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, use their military to patrol the streets of their cities because of the violence and the corruption and the problem. And places like Brazil and Argentina and Colombia are supposed to be the model that Venezuela is supposed to follow, according to America, the United States. You see, you didn't hear, and I'll say this again, when you thought of drug cartels, what did you think of? Cali? Bogota? Medellin? Yeah, those are the cities you thought of. You didn't think of Maracaibo. You didn't think of Caracas. You didn't hear about Venezuelan drug cartels. Why? Because there was no DEA allowed in Venezuela. There was no CIA allowed in Venezuela. There were no U.S. military bases in Venezuela. There was no Homeland Security in Venezuela. And they were very, very, very bad on drug dealers in Venezuela. You don't hear about it out of Bolivia, but you hear about it out of Peru. You can go right down the list, and all of the quote-unquote U.S.-friendly countries in South America are the biggest exporters of drugs and have the most violence and have the most problems with crime. It's just a fact. Brazil, Peru, Colombia, these places, and even Panama. But this country has been the one that's been reviled and been attacked and been misrepresented for the last 2 years. And now it's coming to light. The lies that have been told. And this channel is going to continue to show that. So we will leave it there. Thank you everyone again also at the Patreon channel. Very much appreciate it. We did the roundtable discussion today where we talked about how to use psychological operations in a business setting and to affect better, more productive outcomes using language and syntax. So we will leave it there. Happy Thursday to everyone. Tomorrow will be the Maquis Masters, and we will have something in store for them that I think they're going to enjoy very much. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.